Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Atkin. I'm your host, Olivia Atkin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Justine Chartier. Justine is a registered nurse and has worked in departments such as the emergency department, intensive care, high acuity medicine for the past 11 years. Justine also serves patients and individuals as an emotion code and body practitioner and is currently studying to obtain her herbalist diploma. You can find Justine by emailing her at chartier.justine1@gmail.com. Hello, Justine. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited for us to dive into so many different aspects of your journey, both personally and professionally. But to start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Justine?
So I think for me, success just means like truly living a happy and authentic life, like being who I am 100% of the time, not having to hold myself back, and just like truly, yeah, living a happy life. Like I do have definitely goals in the long run, but for me, achieving those goals does not necessarily mean success to me. As long as I can maintain my happiness, um, in my individual life, my family life, like throughout while I'm achieving those goals, that to me is what success looks like.
And I think you brought up such a good point too, is it's not just about achieving the goals that bring you the success. It's
Yes.
that balance. It's being happy, like you said, and fulfilled in all the areas that
Yeah.
you're in.
Yeah.
Justine, you entered into the healthcare industry 11 years ago. However, that was not your first exposure to medicine and the healthcare industry. For years, you had been on the other side, battling headaches and migraines and just a list of different things. For a long time, there were also things you were expressing to healthcare professionals, and they were just not listening. Can you tell us a little bit about what that journey was like for you and what it really was like too, being on both ends of the spectrum?
Yeah, definitely. I have suffered from migraines since I was about 15 years of age. And at the time, like I've had my family doctor for quite a significant amount of time. I'd say like he is really good, but unfortunately, like doctors just don't have enough time. You know, they're so pressed. A lot of the times, even patients or people that don't have doctors have a hard time getting in, and they usually only have like 15 minutes. So, you know, it's hard to get like a holistic picture of everything that's going on. And for me, so my migraine started, yeah, when I was about 15 years old. I had a lot of kind of head trauma experiences before that with like car accidents, playing sports, concussions, and stuff. But because my mom had suffered from migraines, it was kind of just, oh, it's genetic, it's probably hormonal because it started like around the age of 15. So it was never really looked into. Um, to the amount that I had, I guess, like, would have liked it to be looked into, especially coming years down the line when my symptoms started increasing. I finally like pushed to have a scan done of my brain, and I did actually have like a 7.8 centimeter subarachnoid cyst. Ironically, those apparently were not causing my migraines because all my pathways are open and everything. But yeah, it's kind of just it is difficult like being on the other side and having to experience what the patients experience, because a lot of the times there is just like a lot of miscommunication. You're kind of like left in the dark what's going on. I luckily know how to read my own scans, so whenever they came up I would just ask for a report and I can see it for myself. But the process of getting that scan and then waiting to see a neurosurgeon when I knew I had a 7.8 centimeter cyst in my brain was like 6 to 7 months, which is a little crazy to have to sit with for so long. I think really going on the other side of it was when my daughter had actually gotten sick, and that's when I realized how little some people can listen. My daughter was sick for quite a significant amount of time, and I had brought her in over 7 times to different care facilities. She was experiencing all these different symptoms, and I kept just kind of getting like tossed to the side, saying it's just, back to back viral infections. It's just back to back viral infections. And then finally, like, I had had enough. Said, no, it's not. Something's wrong. Said, I've worked with sick kids before. Like, I know sick kids. There's something going on. Um, and that's when they finally did blood work, and she was actually diagnosed with a really rare disease. And because I had pushed so hard, she was one of the youngest diagnosed, actually. Yeah, so it can definitely be frustrating, and you really do have to fight and push for what you want. And I think a lot of it too, just growing up in the healthcare, and from I guess my background with my parents, like my mom was kind of more always on the trying to find like natural side of things. So with my headaches, like I had tried like chlorophyll, spirulina, different things to kind of clear up the sinuses to see if that would help. And then my dad was really into like taking care of your body with, exercise and fitness and stuff. Um, Shoot, where was I going with this now?
You're fine.
Ah,
So, here's my question for you.
yes.
You you brought up the fact too, you have seen things and things you and I haven't even discussed of the area of you went through your health battles starting at a young age and growing up as a child trying to be like, this is what's going on. And as someone who battles migraines, I know how hard that could be sometimes. You're just like, you start off, it's a little bit of pain. You're like, okay, I can work through this. Next thing you know, you're like, if anyone moves, if the light changes direction, we're done. It's game
Yep.
over. And then also that adds into what a lot of people forget of, and I've experienced this, you get the headache or that migraine and you then are like, I need space, I need the lights off, or I need to go rest, I don't want to eat, which then triggers other symptoms of your nausea, and then you don't have food in your system, so then
Yep.
it amplifies the headache. So you've seen it from that end, you've seen it from the healthcare, and you've also seen it now with advocating for your daughter. For individuals who are sitting there, whether it's a migraine or dealing with themselves not feeling well in one area over another, or trying to be a caregiver to someone else, what would you recommend on a way to advocate to make some a professional listen, especially if it isn't that sometimes easy check the box, oh, these are the symptoms, it definitely aligns with this, here's your medication.
Yeah. Yes, that is a loaded question. I think one of the best things that you can do, and this is kind of what I was getting at actually with the points that I was making before, was it's so important to really like know how your body works and understand your body and understand like all these pains that you're having. I think one of the best things that you can do is write everything down, like every symptom, do a journal, track that, because like the doctors are not mind readers; they can't be in there and just know how you're feeling based on the different symptoms that you're having. You really have to be like very descriptive in all the details, and like pictures, recordings, definitely get those too so that you can show your doctor, especially if something's happening like a twitching in your eye, or yeah, anything else. And I think, yeah, like going on to the migraines too, especially, it gets I think it gets like pushed back to the side a lot because people can't see it. It's not like a physical disability. And like you said, the majority of people who have suffered from chronic migraines, it's been going on for years since they were like teenagers. So we've just kind of learned to deal with it, to deal with this pain, and to just like shut ourselves out when we need to, which is not okay. Nobody should have to live like that. And yeah, it causes a whole whirlwind of problems, like you were talking about, when you have to like shut yourself out. And not only that, but it can cause like serious depression too, because now you're secluding yourself from your family. You're not able to make those memories. You're staring at like a wall in tears for how many days on end. Like it can be really debilitating. Yeah, so I think just knowing your body, knowing your symptoms, and really getting as much information and detail as you possibly can from that, especially with the pain. Like, don't try to hide away from the pain, but really try to understand it. Like, what is my pain telling me? What does it feel like? Where is it going? As many details as you can. And sometimes just even like describing that pain and saying it out loud and detailing it, sometimes even that too can just help you understand more and get to the root cause of where this pain is actually coming from. Because I mean, like, medications are really great if you can't live, you can't do your daily activities. Like, it's good to get you to that standing point to where you can do all the things that you need to do, but the end goal should be to always come off those medications, get to the root problem, and actually fix it. Yeah.
And I think that's something too, and I've experienced it, is like people are going, okay, it's you're good on the medication. Okay,
Mhm.
but how many of us want to take medication every single day of our lives to be able to
Yeah.
do things? And so it's like, what can you be doing, whether that's through, exercising or alternative medicine so that you don't have to be on those medications every day. Because especially at a young age, and Justine, tell me if you ever experienced this as a caregiver or as a nurse or through your own life experiences, but, like, I'll be the first to admit it. There's days where I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot to take my medicine," or you just
Oh, yeah.
don't feel like taking it, and then, like, a day goes by and you're like, "Okay, I didn't take it today. Oh, I just won't take it tomorrow." Like, especially in your teenage years, I don't know who else has experienced that. You you just don't wanna take it, and it's something that are you should be taking, or you start to realize, oh, I'm feeling the same way I did on and off of it. And it
Yeah.
can go down a slippery road. So I'm not advocating in any means to just stop taking medication because you don't feel like it. Please don't do that. Do not,
Please don't do that.
that's not the takeaway here. But what I'm saying is it can be so easy sometimes to do that. So for you, how have you looked at medication and whether it's the right time to say, "Hey, is there possibility to get off of it, or do I really need it and really need to be taking it?"
Yeah, and I think that's really dependent on what kind of medications you are on, especially because there's a lot of them too, like you said, like you can't just cut them off. Otherwise, they do have serious side effects. And things like antibiotics, which can be really difficult to like know to take on a regular basis or to take on a regular basis, but those ones are just super important. Um, and like cardiac medications too. I mean, for those medications, I always say like definitely like speak to your doctor and try to come up with a plan, or not even a doctor, like a holistic professional. There's a lot of naturopaths and everything out there now that can also work with your doctor in helping you take and start to decrease those medications. Because even doctors, like a lot of people say, they push medications, but at the same time, it's kind of the fault of our society because we always want an instant fix. We don't want to be off work for the week that it actually takes for our body to heal when you look at it from a holistic perspective. Um, but they don't really want you on medications. Whenever we do rounds and stuff, we try to see the ones that we can take off. Um, I think in terms of like trying to get off your medications would be again like you do need to have a holistic approach to really figure out what the root cause of the problem is. There's a lot of different aspects to the human body that people just kind of push to the back burner. Like your human body encompasses your physical, your mental, your emotional, and your spiritual. And if anything is out of alignment there, then you're going to have disease, you're going to have chronic issues, you're going to have chronic pain. So it's not just looking at the physical symptoms of it. And yeah, like getting onto that, once you're on medication, people think that they don't have the problem anymore. They're like, oh, I don't have hypertension. I'm on blood pressure medication. Well, no, you still have the hypertension. Take away the medications and see what happens. And a lot of the times, yeah, I'm finding that it's like a lot of emotional, mental, and spiritual things that just, yeah, it gets pushed to the back burner, especially in our medical society today. Like we're so focused on just the symptoms. We're not actually getting to the root problem of it because it takes time. Yeah.
And I want to dive into the more natural side of medicine because, as you mentioned earlier, you battled migraines for years. What was the catalyst when you decided, what I've been doing is it just hasn't been working. I have to look for another solution and see what's out there.
Yes. I hit a really rough point. There was a lot of things going on in my life, and a lot of things that actually happened before that I never emotionally dealt with. I always just shoved everything down. I was always afraid to like speak. This would never be happening a couple of years ago. Oh my goodness. Um, And yeah, it started to have like really detrimental effects to the point where I started getting really bad panic attacks, really bad heart palpitations. And I had had heart issues in the past, like as a teenager too. I went through different tests for that. And to the point where I just like I could not function anymore. And that was the breaking point for me. My migraines were coming on like, yeah, about 3 times a week. I was like, this is not okay, like enough is enough. So I did start speaking to, it was one of my friends that had gotten me introduced to the emotion code by Dr. Bradley Nelson. And then he talks about like the severity of trapped emotions and how trapped emotions in your body can like um it gums up the natural flow of everything going on. And that's such a huge component in our healing and in our health because everything around us is energy. And then when you read that and look into that, like it makes so much sense. And of course, there's so many different ways to do that. Like you don't just have to do the emotion code or the body code. There's so many different ways to kind of protect your energy, cleanse your energy. Um, yeah,
So
I think I got sidetracked again.
for you too, how did you at that catalyst moment and you said, "Okay, there's something more I have to be doing," and you started reading and you started learning these other things. How did you merge and how have you, because now you work with clients on this, merge your medical background and being a nurse and the day in and day out of that and that side of the knowledge with this more holistic approach that you were starting to take to cure your migraines. And when I say cure, you haven't had migraines in over a year. Um,
Yeah, November was my year. Yeah,
so
was
for
my year
you,
mark.
how what has that been like? What was the process like for you? And what is it also like now going over a year with not having a migraine?
In the beginning, it was pretty incredible, because again, like, I had always kind of been active and good with my eating and health, and then truly it was working with my friend and having her help me learn how to process my emotions, learn how to communicate and not shut down. Anytime I would get angry or sad or cry, it would trigger a migraine. I hated getting emotional because I knew that second, like, I would get a migraine and then I would kinda be done. Yeah, and then I started also working with my acupuncturist and a physiotherapist just to get kind of different exercises and stuff, especially for like the type of work that I was doing now. Before when I was exercising, I was kind of just doing it as like, the sports exercises that I was doing before. Well, no, my body's changed and the things that I'm doing have changed. So I needed like different support in different areas. And then, yeah, with the emotional cleansing and just learning how to process those, the feeling was really incredible. And I remember her like messaging um, my friend for quite a significant amount of time after. Like, if I would have like a really bad sleep or I was sick, I remember being so sick and I hadn't slept in days. And normally, like when I'm sick or not sleeping, instant migraine. And I hadn't got one, and I was just, like, so thrilled. I texted her, I was like, "I feel so terrible, but my head feels amazing." And, like, even the fog, because with the migraines, I was also getting daily headaches before. Like, before I could not remember a day where my head did not hurt just a little bit. So even that was, like, I still remember the moment where everything kinda just lifted, and it was the most incredible feeling ever. I was like, "This is what people feel every day? Like, this is how light people's heads feel every day? Really? This is crazy." Um, and then from there, it was still, like, navigating a lot of the PTSD. Like, I had dealt with this pain for 18 years. I had dealt with all these, like, quote, unquote, "triggers" for so long that it was really navigating to, like, "Okay, am I gonna get a migraine again? Like, do I need to be afraid?" So that was, like, a whole process in itself, just kinda getting rid of the trauma that the last, like, 18 years had brought. But now, no, it really is incredible. But I do know, like, I do have daily work that I have to do, and if I'm not taking care of my body again, like physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, like these things can come back because, like, at the root problem of it, it was like me not dealing with a lot of my stuff.
And I like how you brought that up too, is tying all those different aspects, the emotional, physical, spiritual side to really gain your holistic heal. in a way and really be able to show up in the best version of yourself, not just to work or, to see friends, but really for your own sense of freedom to some extent.
Yeah.
If anyone has experienced migraine, there's this sense of in that moment just feeling trapped because you get limited on what you can do. The noises, like Justine kind of mentioned, those triggers. Okay, well, while you're going through that headache, the sounds around you can be making it worse, or smells. There's been
Mhm.
so many times where smells have hit me and I'm just like, "Okay, we're done." Like, I
Yeah.
I gotta go to a whole different area. Um, like, I just got and sometimes too, it's getting you get a headache at the least expected time, and then you might be sitting in a restaurant or like, "Okay, no, I'll push through this." Again, that smell hits and you're like, "Okay, no, I will go sit in the car while everyone else is doing this." For you now, in addition to nursing, you have started your business working with individuals to help them go through their migraines and come out not having as much or any migraines. What do you work with a client on? Where do you start? Because so many people have so many different experiences with
Mhm.
migraines.
Yeah, and it is a very unique process, and I definitely think, like, my nursing has helped me in that area because I do have a vast background, so when people come to me, what we start out with basically is just kind of a deep dive into their life. So, what have they been experiencing? Try to describe as much of the pain as you can for me. What are your different triggers? Um, and then what health issues do you already have? Because everything is also so tied in together. And then we deep dive into your mental body. So, what types of things are you thinking about when you're on your day to day? Are you aware of the things that you're doing, or are you just kind of living in autopilot? Especially for somebody with migraines, generally, if we do have a busy day, sometimes the second that we stop, it's like that's when the migraine hits because we've been on autopilot for the last like 8, 9 hours that we haven't even realized that our body's trying to send a signal saying like, okay, like you need water, or you need to take a break from the screen, you need to like sit down for 5 seconds, and we're just not aware of that because we're constantly go go go. So I look into that, like look into what your thought process is, because you do have to have more of a positive mindset, especially when it comes to your pain. And learning not to fear the pain, learning to accept the pain because it is trying to tell us something. um, I like to think about like pain in our body like a little baby crying. Our body can't communicate with us. It doesn't know the words, but it does send us little signals. And these pains are the signals, like the baby crying. So instead of just like shoving the baby in the corner and saying, I don't want to deal with you, let's medicate you up so that we can, so that you can be quiet, we need to like nurture the child and like figure out what's going on and figure out different things. Then we also do your emotional body. That's where the emotion code comes in. And different things like through talk therapy, just learning how to process your emotions when they come up. Because if you shove them down, that's just going to cause more chronic issues. And then we look into your spiritual body, not to be confused with religion, but just to be, we just look at like your connection to other people, your connection to, the world, the universe, what you love. And then we kind of amalgamate everything together.
And I think that's so important, some of the things you brought up too, because one thing that you said that then got me thinking of my own experiences, because what some people don't know, and a lot of the listeners, is that this is very I have a special place in my heart for the conversation we're having today because I've grown up having headaches, or gone 2 days, 3 days of like that constant headache. Maybe not at the full migraine level that doctors, oh, well, okay, now it qualifies as a migraine, right? A lot of time it's like it has to be a certain amount of days for it to qualify as a migraine. But I'm like, no, it's there. But one thing that you brought up is the go, 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 or not really processing it. And then it hits, the migraine hits. And one thing I look back at now, I had epilepsy for years when I changed. There were symptoms that I dealt with that were due to medication, some of which were the headaches and I didn't even know it. And then once I switched medication a few years ago, some of those things, my hands would shake, kind of tremor. It, to the naked eye, you can't always notice it. Sometimes it'd be worse than other points, but it would be constant. And then when I switched medication, it went from like constant to not at all. And I was like, wait, I can live without having to explain why my hand is shaking to someone who is like, what's going on? Because it
Yeah.
could go from like something small to your caffeine levels are
Mhm.
dropping and now it's even worse, or the migraines. But for me, I'm such a go, go, go person that now thinking about it, some of those migraines really happened because we'd be in conversations like this and I'd be like, okay, I'm in meetings. I gotta just not eat. We'll go on to the next. I'll eat later. And then
Yeah.
later comes and I'm like, okay, well now I'm not feeling that great. And then you don't want to eat. So there's no
Yeah.
real solution. But if you listen to those moments of, okay, I'm starting to get a little lightheaded. Let me make sure I have my snacks available. Let me make sure I'm bringing the snacks with me, or, I make that block of time out in my schedule to make sure I'm fueling my body, that
Mhm.
might then not happen down the road.
Yes, exactly. And just like yeah, and like what you're fueling your body with too, water is so important. And a lot of times people will be like, "Oh, I need coffee," or "Oh, I need an energy drink." Oh, why not just water? The coffee is delicious. I do drink coffee, but yes.
For you too, what has the journey been like for you personally now getting to work with individuals and make the impact of being able to provide that feeling of clarity and not having migraines, not just to yourself, but others?
It does feel really great, especially because the majority of people think that they're gonna have to deal with this for the rest of their lives. It's been so long, and a lot of these chronic issues go kind of undiagnosed because there is no real physiological thing there that's causing them. Um, but to, like, see the success in others is truly wonderful, especially from being at the hospital. I do still work at the hospital, and that can be it can be very trying sometimes on the soul, especially when you're not getting the results that you want for your patients. Like you see that they can achieve so much more. And I think that if we did have a more holistic approach too in the hospital, like have like herbalists, naturopaths, like physiotherapists, everything working together, because it would be so important. Yeah, and a lot of the times, like you're sending people home that you're like, I don't feel like you're quite ready yet. And then lo and behold, 2 weeks later, they're back in, and you kind of anticipated that happening. Whereas this, I get to take you through the whole journey, and it's such a great feeling, and it's such a great process. And just being able to like see people on the other side not experiencing the pain anymore and actually like living their lives again, and like hearing the stories that they get to tell me because they're not living with migraines anymore. It's a wonderful.
For you, what would be your personal advice, whether it is from that caregiver and working with individuals, but also going through the process of migraines yourself, that someone who's sitting here going, I have them all the time. I really do not know what to do. Like, this is what my life is. Like, there's no other choice. What would be your words of wisdom for those individuals?
I think, like, if you're struggling, definitely reach out more and just know that you don't have to live like this. Reach out, do research, talk to people, and even, yeah, just try to look back and think about kind of what was going on when those migraines first started. And that can be a really kind of telltale sign of kind of what triggered them in the first place. Yeah, I think that would be a really good starting point.
And I think that's so important too, whether it is migraines or something else, or even taking that approach. And I think it's such a great approach into personal relationships and business of like, where did it stem back? Where
Yeah.
is the farthest place I can remember and go back to go, okay, this is what I was doing when it started. Here is again, like in business or anything, there's consistency. So where
Mhm.
do the consistencies lay and where do the outliers lay? What is the thing I'm always around when I start to have this feeling? When does it grow? Kind of like you mentioned earlier, is it when you're going and then you are ignoring some of those flags that are popping up and then all of a sudden it's full blown? What does
Yeah,
that look like? I think that's such an important takeaway there from it, what you're saying, and how to really relate it to anything we are in life. Because when you go back to how far can I go back and see those consistencies, see where it stems from, it gives you a different perspective on things as well, because it is something that when we're in the minutia of it all, the day to day, you forget. You're just like, "Okay, I'm going through the motions. It's here. Gotta
yeah,
tackle it." And you forget about everything else.
yeah, exactly. And you kinda just, like, have to pause and, like, look at everything else that's going around you. And, yeah, I love how you said that you can implement this into different aspects of your life, and yeah, totally, you really should. Um, Especially, like, yeah, relationships. And I love how you said that when you put it on a business perspective because I use that as well. Like we give so much of ourselves to like work and businesses. And when things go wrong in our business or when like for me, when there's an error at work, well, one, we have to be honest about it. And two, we have to deep dive and look into, okay, like what happened? What was the cause of the error and how can we make it better? And we should really be taking that on into like every aspect of our life, including, yeah, disease and relationships. Like, okay, what's going on? How can I make it better? And what can we change to move forward from here and to make sure that this doesn't happen
I love that. And for you, when you now look back at your journey, what has been the most rewarding part of, I don't wanna say it like this, but the pain that you've suffered and the things, whether it was personally or that you've witnessed being a nurse, that now you get to go, "Okay, all of these things I didn't realize in real time how they were affecting me, but
again?
now I get to pay it forward by being able to relate to the person I'm working with, or really taking a step further and helping that person eliminate the pain they couldn't before."
Yes. And I think the biggest takeaway that I found is just gaining a sense of empathy, talking to other individuals and just seeing what they experience. You don't necessarily have to live through something to be able to kind of gain an understanding of what somebody is going through. And I think I just try to implement that in my day to day. Like nobody has any idea what somebody's going through. So just like take that into consideration. Um, what else? And then also just giving people a safe space to like vent and talk about what they need to talk about. Not holding any judgment, just let them say whatever they need to say and just know that you're there for them. Um, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought again.
You're fine, because
Shoot.
I was gonna jump in and say how much I loved the fact that you brought up the safe space, and I think that's so important because sometimes we forget that when we're explaining the pain we're having, it's not always just to complain about the pain, but it's our way of being able to make someone else relate to it. It isn't us just complaining about it, it's us trying to explain what we're going through, and sometimes it's not heard that way. So when you take
Exactly.
out the aspect of actually sitting down and the tone of something and going, "Okay, I'm not gonna judge you on how you might say this. I'm gonna really listen." It can make a big difference, and that's how sometimes doctors figure out things, because they are making it a safe space when they are able to just listen to what you're saying you're going through.
Exactly. And sometimes I feel like even just having that and having that safe space gains so much like awareness and clarity to people because there's a lot of the times where like I'll do calls and people won't follow up as a client, but they'll definitely gain something just from our call because I do offer that space where they are able to vocalize anything. And then just saying it out loud helps to process.
Mhm. Justine,
Mhm.
how can people get in touch with you if they wanna connect with you?
They can find me on Facebook at Justine Chartier, or my Instagram tag, is that what it's called? Is
Mhm.
Justine Chartier _. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Justine, for all of your insight today.
And thank you so much for having me. It was a really great conversation.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think you had a lot of different perspective and insights and the journey you have been on, and now trying to help so many other people through different approaches and all of your work and it being so well rounded. And that being said, a few of our key takeaways from today's conversation include: when you're having constant pain, write that down. I love how Justine had mentioned that in the beginning because I've been there. I bet everyone has been there where you're having the pain. It's either coming and going or it's constant. And you go to the doctor's office and they're like, okay, tell me your symptoms. And you're like, here's 3, but I know there's probably like 6 others, and you're just like so in the moment, you forget to list them, but they all play a role. So being able to, in the moment when you have them at home or whatever your environment you are in, being able to write them down and being like, this is how I felt, this is where it was hitting. All of those things are so important to being
Mhm.
able to diagnose someone in the right way, prescribe the right medications, be able to help someone the best way possible, as well as don't hide away from the pain, try to understand the pain. I love how Justine mentioned this, and she mentioned it a few times. It really is about, pain we has such a negative undertone sometimes, but in reality, when we sit back and understand where it's stemming from, it can be so relieving and
Mhm.
so exciting because we can gain so much insight from what that pain is telling us, and it can relieve so much pain as well. Instead of just hiding away from it and trying to ignore it, we're just deciding to deal with the pain that's in front of us in that moment. When when we really try to sit down and understand it, there can be so many more rewards to it and so much more understanding on different levels of ourselves as
Mhm.
well. That is important, as well as processing your emotional pain can release your physical pain. Justine had mentioned this throughout the show with her migraine stories and explaining to us how it can work differently and the different factors that can play into migraines. Being able to really let go of your emotions and process them allows you to process potentially some of the physical pain you are having. This was a great episode with our top notch guest, Justine Chartier. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.